Our first item tonight is number 202-24, which is a request to allow a series of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in height in a setback at 21 Oakland Street, Unit 2. We'll first hear from planning.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Joe O'Donoghue, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. I'll be covering 21 Oakland. It is a special permit to construct retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in height in the rear and side setbacks. This is the only item of relief that they are required. This is something that the council recently has been working on, and regardless of those changes, it would have needed relief prior because it is within a setback, and it would need relief going forward as it is over 4 feet as well. So there are 4 criteria to consider with this: is whether or not the site is an appropriate location for the reconstruction of a series of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in the rear and side setbacks, that the proposed construction of a series of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in the rear and side setbacks as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that the proposed reconstruction of a series of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in the rear and side setbacks will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the number and types of vehicles involved for the proposed construction of a series of retaining walls. I won't spend too much time on this. The property itself is near Newton Corner. There are a lot of zones and uses in the area. The use itself is a 2-family as a part of the multi-residence 1 district. However, standards for retaining walls don't vary based on use or zone, so this is not particularly important to consider. Something that I think is a little bit more relevant here is the immediate neighborhood context. As you can see on the left, the property is in the right side of that left photo. There's some retaining walls on the properties across the street, and there's kind of it's sort of a dead end of the street, but then the street kind of goes on past this retaining wall in the back here. And that's because this is a pretty steep neighborhood. As you go up Oakland Street and go towards the southwest, you can see how close together those contour lines are, where it rises something like almost 150 feet over the next 400 or 500 feet to the southwest, which is a pretty significant grade. And if you've ever been in the area, there's definitely a lot of properties that have similar needs for retaining walls or have built them to make some level surfaces on their properties because of how steep this grade is. This is a look at the site plan, and since we don't have architectural plans, since all of the work is exterior here, it's a picture of the retaining walls as they are. The proposal is for the same type of blocks. As you can see in the left picture, we have the site plan. That's where those walls are located. That's where they will stay. This site plan is signed off on as these retaining walls having failed. And when it comes time for the petitioner to speak, we welcome them to elaborate on exactly what the nature of that failure is. But these walls are going to be replaced in kind to the same height and in the same location as they currently are constructed to that left rear side of the lot. Also worth noting on these site plans is that there's a 12.5-foot setback from the left rear corner of the house to the lot line. So if that grade were to continue in its natural form, that might make it very difficult for the residents of this property to go around the back of their property. And I suspect that that might have something to do with why they've established these, is to create some usable space there. But we're not sure exactly the nature of why these were put in, because they were put in 1987 without the proper permitting. and reconstructed 3 years ago, also without a proper special permit. And now the petitioner, as they are seeking to reconstruct them, has to be the one to actually go forward and do the special permit because that wasn't done prior. All right, and that is all I have for my immediate presentation. Turn it back to the council or committee.
Thank you very much, Joe. We look forward to hearing some more details from the petitioner. Mr. Joshi, are you able to speak?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Yeah, so I'm the owner of the address that was just discussed. I don't have any other, any problems with what was just said about the project. I can just add some elaboration that this is a wall that we inherited from the previous owners of this property, who, like were just mentioned, built a retaining wall made of stone that replaced, I believe, one that was made of railroad ties, and that was done about a year before we moved in. Although I'm not sure exactly when the project was finished. And it was done without a permit and incorrectly. And about a year after we moved in, the wall collapsed. So there were large stone blocks that fell, and a portion of the wall collapsed. And so we are trying to get it fixed. In speaking with the inspectional services department at the city, they said that we needed to come up with a stabilization plan, which we have. So there's some wooden structures there now that are just holding the earth up and preventing further erosion, but it's not a complete fix. And so we have submitted an engineering approved plan to essentially rebuild the wall, but properly with proper anchoring, so that it doesn't fall again, anchoring in the form of geofabric, which is what the structural engineer that developed the plans said was the best way to ensure no further problems in terms of stability. And we have a builder in place who has agreed to follow the structural engineer's plans to do that repair, which will cosmetically and positionally be in the same place and hopefully look the same as it did in the picture that was just shown, except do it in a way that is structurally sound rather than one that was built incorrectly and so therefore fell. I guess I'll pause there and I can answer further questions if people have them.
Thank you for staying available to answer questions. I suspect there may be a few. Excuse me. Let's see if there are any members of the public who would like to comment on this or ask questions. Creative Kids Studio. Are you here for the next project or for this one? Okay, you're in the process of being promoted, and you can speak or tell us that you're here for a different project, if that's the case. For this, yeah. Creative Kids Studio. Not hearing now from Creative Kids Studio. Let's just move on. We'll come back to you if you do want to speak on this. Otherwise, we'll come back to you for the next project. Lisa Monahan?
Hi, Lisa Monahan, 1105 Walnut Street, Newton Highlands. And I just wanted to say that I'm a member of a architects professional building committee group who is taking a look at issues like this and other building and site related issues as they relate to zoning across the city. And we're just weighing in on issues. And I think that this is an appropriate application of this special permit. And I would hope that the committee would grant the request for a special permit. It seems like it's taking care of a hazardous condition. It seems like it's appropriate for the terrain of the neighborhood. It doesn't seem like it's creating a nuisance. It doesn't seem like it's negatively impacting any of the neighbors. And it seems like the owner is taking responsible measures in this case. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Monahan. I don't see any other hands up, so, oh. Is his hand up? Bob Nealon? Okay, yep, thank you. Bob Nealon, are you able to unmute and speak?
Hello.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Nealon.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead, you may give us your name and address and your comments on this proposal.
My name is Robert Nealon. I manage the properties at 60 Needham Street and 66 Needham Street. I have no opinion on Joe LaDonce's application. I have no opposition. It makes total sense to me, but I'm not part of that. That's not why I'm here.
Are you here for the project on Needham Street?
I'm here to get 6 or 7 parking spaces approved for the Creative Kids Studio.
The next item that we'll be talking about relates to that project. Right now, we're on a different one around retaining walls in Ward 1.
Okay, well, I just logged in.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why I was brought up, but I don't know why you would hesitate on Joe LaDonce's application.
Okay, thank you. And stay tuned if you would like to speak on the next project as well.
I may, but I've been asked not to talk unless I have to. So.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Anyone else here online who would like to speak about the 21 Oakland Street proposal? I don't see anyone, in which case we're going to take it into the committee. I saw Councilor Leary's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't see how we cannot approve this item regarding the retaining walls. I'm glad Lisa Monahan spoke up. She is an architect. I am very familiar with this area. It's like my favorite walking, running area because there's a lot of hills. Although the retaining walls are way in the back, they're actually very hard to see. And I can see the importance of having them, especially ones that don't fall down, so they can use their backyard. And I would like to see a safe, effective retaining walls that have been looked at by engineering and have gone through the special permit process. And without further ado, when the time comes, I would move approval. Thank you.
Thank you, and this is in your ward. We'll appreciate that. Let's see if we have other comments from within the committee. Councilor Block, then Lucas.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. Councilor Farrell and I visited this site yesterday. I think the current owner is being very responsible. He has support of his neighbors to make this improvement. So I concur that we should move forward with this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Councillor Lucas?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Council Larry's comments on this particular petition, with the exception of it being my favorite running spot in Newton, because there's a lot of hills. I prefer the walk on flat ground in Newtonville. But other than that, this seems like a very good petition, and I'll be voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Farrell?
Just to support my colleagues here, but more enthusiastically, we need to do this, and we need to let this man build that wall. We looked at the property, and there's a house up on Winthrop, which used to be Oakland Street, and if this wall doesn't get fixed, that house is going to be in trouble, that looks like. But the neighbors are very supportive of this, and we hope we'll all move to approve this quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. I think we're going to move quickly to vote on this, but I do have a couple of clarification questions. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just curious. Mr. Joshi, are these some kind of concrete blocks? Are they interlocking, or what is the material that your structural engineer is designing for this wall?
They are blocks. I'm afraid I don't know whether or not they interlock. I'm looking at the engineering plans now and trying to see if there's some name for them. I know that he mentioned that they have a specific name. of the
Allen
wall.
blocks?
Sorry?
There are Allen blocks per the plans.
Okay, Allen blocks. So I'm not sure if they're interlocking or not, but they're the same ones that were there before. So we're not changing that aspect of the wall. The part that we are changing to make it more structurally sound is to add an anchoring element, which is called geofabric, which is essentially fabric underneath each layer of bricks in the wall that extends back into the earth and anchors the wall to the earth behind it.
So they're not set into any sort of foundation, they're just anchored back into the earth with the geofabric?
That is my understanding.
Is your structural engineer here by chance?
No,
Okay.
I'm afraid.
Well, has that plan been submitted? Has the engineering plan with civil and structural been submitted already? This is all not within our context. I'm just asking these questions because I'm curious to how this wall failed and what you're going to do to prevent it. It's really going to be all up to review by the city engineer. So I was just curious about those things. I think that we are probably ready to move on the motion by Councillor Leary to, did you make a motion to close the public hearing as well? I thought so. Yes or not? Or shall you do that now?
A motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Just say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No, nobody is online. Public hearing is closed. Joe, can you take us through the findings and proposed conditions?
Sure thing. The findings are that the site is an appropriate location for the proposed construction of a series of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in the rear and side setback, given the walls are placed where there is an approximately 10-foot drop in elevation over about 5 feet in distance to the rear left of the dwelling. The site is also narrow and with 12.5-foot side setback from the corner of the dwelling. Retaining walls create some level space to access the rear of the dwelling. The proposed reconstruction of a series of retaining walls as developed and operating will not adversely affect the neighborhood, given the topography of the properties on Oakland Street and the surrounding neighborhood is steep, making retaining walls common. Additionally, the petitioner is replacing the prior walls in kind. Next, that the proposed reconstruction of a series of retaining walls will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, as they do not affect site parking or circulation. And lastly, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved for the proposed reconstruction of a series of retaining walls, as the scope of work under the special permit is limited to the reconstruction of the retaining walls. The next, we just have standard conditions, which are just going to reference the site plans here rather than as we typically do, referencing architectural plans.
Thank you very much. I think we're ready to vote on this.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and good luck, Mr. Joshi. We're very grateful that you are doing this in the proper way, and I'm sorry that you purchased this property perhaps without knowing that your rear wall was failing, but thank you for doing the right thing.
Thank you.
The next project we have before us tonight is number 203-24, which is a request to allow a daycare use and a special permit to waive 6 parking stalls at 66 Needham Street. Again, we'll hear from planning first.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kat Kemet. I am a senior planner on the current planning team for the city. This is petition number 203-24, a special permit for 66 Needham Street. The petitioner proposes to allow a daycare in the space that used to be a bicycle store and showroom. The majority of the relief needed here will be granted through a Dover waiver by the Commissioner of Inspectional Services because a daycare use is exempted from certain local zoning regulations. The planning memo did discuss aspects of the petition that are really covered by the Dover waiver, so my apologies on that front. The elements of relief covered by the Dover waiver include parking within the front and side setbacks, the vegetative screening for the parking and outdoor play area, and a screening and management plan for trash on the site. The relief really under the eye here is the special permit relief for the 6 parking stall waivers, which is what the committee will vote on. When reviewing this request, the council should consider if the site in a mixed-use 2 district is an appropriate location for the proposed parking waivers, if the waivers will adversely affect the neighborhood, if the parking waivers will create a nuisance or a serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the number and types of vehicles involved, and if literal compliance with the number of parking stalls is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot. The property is located on Needham Street in the mixed-use 2 zone. The properties on the western side of Needham Street on this stretch are zoned mixed-use 1, while the eastern side is largely zoned MU 2. The site is located along the Needham Street corridor, which has a really diverse mix of uses. This area includes retail, restaurants, healthcare, and residential uses, among others. The site is right next to a stop for the MBTA 59 bus, which runs from Needham to Watertown Square. This is the proposed site plan. The site has a shared access drive with the mixed-use building at 60 Needham Street next door, which is to the left of the subject parcel here at 66. So you enter the one-way entrance here in between the 2 buildings and exit the site to the left here on the other side of 60 Needham Street. There are 26 parking stalls on the site now dedicated to 66 Needham Street, with 14 stalls located along the side of the building here and 12 at the rear of the building. There are 2 fences that run along portions of the southern property line and a chain link fence closer to the street. There's also a small retaining wall at the southwest corner of the rear parking area back here. The plan here is to remove 1 parking stall at the rear and add an enclosed outdoor play area behind the building, between the building and the rear parking area. So to operate the daycare, the maximum number of staff at peak hours will be 18 employees with 110 children on the site. The previous retail use required 1 stall per every 300 feet plus 1 stall per every 3 employees. So it brings over a credit of 34 stalls, and the daycare requires 40 parking stalls. So it needs a waiver of 6. The daycare has an app for parents and guardians for pickup and drop off, which they use to coordinate young people entering and leaving the site. So based on communication through the app, a teacher or a teacher's aide will greet the child and their guardian in the lobby and escort them into the daycare area. The 12 stalls, go back here, at the rear will be used for staff. Based on a narrative provided by the petitioner, several employees carpool or commute via public transit. So there are not 18 stalls, which is the maximum number of employees, but because other employees use different modes of transit, we didn't have an issue with that. And the 14 stalls located near the main entrance of the building will be dedicated just to pick up and drop off for students. And the hours of operation are 8 to 6 on Monday through Friday, closed on holidays. And there will be some staggering in the pickup and drop off. So it's not anticipated that every student will arrive at 8 a.m. and leave at 6 p.m. So overall, the department believes the waiver of 6 stalls is reasonable given the needs of the site and that there is existing parking on the site today. And it is close to public transit. So that is all. I'm not sure if the petitioner is here. I know there was a last minute conflict, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. As I understand it, the petitioner is online and available for questions. I'm not sure of your name. If you would like to identify yourself and say anything now, you can, or just identify yourself and be available for questions. Do you have a name? Oh, that's that.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, sir. Are you Creative Kids Studio?
Yes, I'm the owner of the Creative Kids Studio.
And what's your name, sir?
My name is Alex Schreiber.
And your address, please?
Home address?
Yes, please.
89 Needham Street, apartment 2102.
Thank you very
Just
much.
across the street.
How handy. You can walk to work if you don't get killed crossing the street.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to add at this time to the presentation by the planning department, or do you just want to hang on to be available if there are questions for you?
No, I don't have any questions. You know, I think it's what Kat said. It is.
Okay, thank you. There may be some questions for you, so we appreciate that you're here. And
Okay, thank
your
you.
attorney may be here later too if there are any questions that he needs to address.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, now is the time to hear from members of the public who have questions or comments about this petition. Mr. Nealon, do you want to speak to this or not? Okay, you declined. Thank you. I don't see any other hands. If you are in the audience, in the virtual Zoom audience, and you would like to make a comment, raise your virtual hand. If you don't know how to do that, there's a button at the bottom of your screen, or you can wave wildly on screen, and we will try and see you doing that visually. We don't see anyone. Oh, okay. Mr. Nealon, I think you are coming back to be able to speak if you would like to.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Nealon, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just because we're now on, I think, the project you might want to speak to, could you just give us your name and address again for the record?
Robert Nealon, 8 Pine Hill Drive, Walpole, Massachusetts.
Thank you. And let us now hear what you may have for comments.
I support this 100%. I manage the properties at 60 Needham Street and 66 Needham Street, and we are 100% supportive of, and we have the ability to give Alex 6 or 7 parking spaces that he needs to get this special permit.
Oh, what a nice surprise. We can bring that up and hear from Alex and planning about that if we need to, but thank you very much, Mr. Nealon. Are you speaking on behalf of the management company then?
I am the manager.
You are the manager, okay. Thank you very much. Is that it for you for now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't see anyone else from the public who wants to speak, in which case we're going to take it into the committee and hear from the Land Use Committee members. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just curious about what the barrier is between the cars parked behind the building and the outdoor play area. Maybe I could hear from Kat about that, because it was hard to see on screen. And the only concern I obviously would have is the safety issue with cars being able to perhaps be able to get into, by accident or whatever. Get in that
It's a
area.
chain link fence.
It's just a chain link fence? There's
Yes.
no bollards or anything like that?
No.
I think it's a 6-foot high chain link fence. Is that correct, Ms. Kemet?
Okay.
There is not at this time, but that is what is proposed.
And planning satisfied with that?
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
Yes.
We're going to be putting wheel stops before the chain link fence.
So the cars can't go any further.
Those are
They
just
can't, well, not without, unless they really wanted to do something bad. Yeah, no. The wheel stops the car, even if they're sliding on ice.
Those are the low wheel stops that you see often in parking lots that basically they're maybe several inches off the ground. Is that,
Yeah.
they're usually made of cement, but I've seen them made out of hard plastic.
No, these would be cement.
Cement.
They'd be
okay.
about 4 to 5 inches high, and they would stop a car unless someone is really, but the way the parents are dropping off the kids at the back door, there just won't be an incident because the parents come in slowly because they know there are children everywhere. That's not how the daycare centers work.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I just wanted to be clear about that because the safety of the children is really my only concern. Thank you, Mr. Nealon.
Of course.
All set, Councilor Leary? Other Land Use Committee members. Councilor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. That is one of the concerns that I also have, that I understand these wheel stops, but if someone were to take their foot off the brake or accidentally hit a gas pedal, they're not going to stop a car. And the safety of the kids really is paramount here. And I would like to see something else, particularly near the playground area, that would have a more significant detriment to anything getting through into that play area. But I'd also like to ask with regard to the parking, it's a very busy location that you have there, and all of the parking spots seem to be filled most of the time. And so I'm concerned, one, about 100 students being dropped off pretty much at the same time of each day and being picked up at pretty much the same time of each day, whether there will in fact be sufficient empty spots along the side, since you're going to reserve the ones in back for staff. I live very close to this project. I think one of the best, first of all, let me tell you, I think it's terrific that you want to build daycare center. We desperately need those services. But I am also very concerned about the health and welfare of the kids. There's a lot of traffic going in and out of there, and with all of those cars and maybe not having a place to park, to drop off their kids, is a real concern, particularly when I assume they're all going to come pretty much in the same period of time. And I guess I'd like to hear you speak to that if you would, please.
Are you addressing that to?
If I may, through you, Chair.
To Alex Schraber?
Yes.
Whoever is the most important person to answer the question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Schraber.
It's first of all, I am planning to put when it's screen of the playground, it's a yellow bollard. It's about like 4 feet. It's tall. It's made from steel and yellow covered. It's about we have another location with the planning to live on Winchester Street, and our experience we have there like it's 85 children, but it's close to this location. We're gonna move everybody. It's to 66 Needham Street. Our experience shows from 8 to 9, it's the parents drop off, and no more than like 2 minutes, because when they come to the property, staff go outside, take the children and bring inside. So it's actually the same situation we had in the 49 Winchester Street, and we never ever had any problem.
Councillor Farrell, is that addressing what you were wondering about?
Perhaps in part, but I really don't see how even over maybe an hour and a half that 100 cars are going to get in there, each one stopping for maybe 2 minutes to drop off, make certain that their child gets into the building safely, and then moving away. I find that my imagination says that that's going to be a very congested area. And again, I become concerned about the children moving around. And I don't see how that is going to resolve itself. And I'm not sure if I understood you correctly, sir, but did you say you're going to have some 4-foot bollards?
Yes.
In front of the parking, the playground area?
Yes.
And
every parking stall will have its bollard.
To separate it from the playground?
Yeah, it's from the screen to the cars.
Okay, I would hope that you would please put that in your petition.
Yes.
So that that's clear. But I just continue to have a real concern about so many cars getting in there in an area that is with the framing shop and the Taekwondo area and the restaurants and so forth.
Chairwoman, I'd like to speak.
Mr. Nealon, you have had a turn, and I will come back to you if there's time, but right now we're going to let Councillor Farrell finish his questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just can't, I'm pretty much done, Chair, thank you very much, but it really is just trying to imagine how this will be a safe situation for an area that's very crowded, coming off of Needham Street, where it's virtually impossible to turn onto this property if you're headed south. And I just think it's very congested, and I'm just concerned about the safety of the children with so many kids there. And in the playground area, some kids leave the main entrance is right there. It would be possible for kids to get out into the parking area where there are and will continue to be a lot of traffic. But thank you, Chair.
You didn't have any other types of questions to ask?
sticking.
While you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's pretty much about that. The safety of the kids, certainly where the staff area is parking, and making sure that that's safe. And I have questions about the playground, but I don't think that's within what we're talking about here necessarily. But with 110 kids and that the size of the playground, as I understand it, they're going to be tempted to go out that gate and go into the parking lot. And I don't understand in terms of parking, there are two hills, and I don't know what the owner has in his mind about more parking, creating even more parking in that area, which would create even greater congestion. So, but it's pretty much that. I don't see how this project is going to work easily. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Farrell. I see you are framing your questions around parking, which is the matter before us, to speak to the request for a waiver of 6 parking stalls. And I may come back to planning and the petitioner and perhaps law around this offer of 6 or 7 more parking spaces and see what negotiation is happening around them. Before we get back to that, Councilor Block.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. My questions in effect are through the chair to the planning department, and what significance they attach to having or not having these 6 stalls waived. Given the congestion, given the increased traffic volume, I think the questions that Councilor Farrell raised are also on my mind too. So I'm wondering what you've thought about it, about that in particular. Thanks.
Kat, would you like to reply to Councilor Block?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a waiver of only 6 stalls. I do, all the materials we have indicate that it will be a pretty quick pickup and drop off. It will be staggered and communicated online with the studio and staff. It seems there is adequate parking for staff. So given that, I wasn't too concerned about a waiver of the 6 stalls.
I think it's also the multiple children can be in the same car. Maybe they're coming from the same family or carpooling. But per the zoning, they only need 6 stalls waived. They have some supply on site, but when you look at the requirements in the zoning ordinance, they only need 6. And I think the applicant keeps raising his hand. I don't know if
Yes.
we want to go to him.
I see that.
I want to edit something. May I?
Okay, go ahead again.
First of all, we will have in the back drop off will be it's in the back, but the drop off will be as well. So when the car comes to the back, the teacher will come to the back through the playground to pick up the children. If you can see in the plan, we have it's a door to go, it's a path, it's to go from a building to the parking lot. So we have actually 2 places for drop off and pick up. One on the side, another in the back.
Thank you for that clarification about your logistics. I'm taken with the way in which the planning department is sort of minimizing this. I mean, saying only 6 spots. This is a very congested area, and 6 more spots in which to maneuver, that could be an important margin of safety that we all need, that the families all need. So it's just something I'm pondering. Thanks very much, Chair Kelly.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question about the logistics, and I'm still a little unclear. Where is the, or where are the entrances to the site, to the daycare? Are they on Needham Street? Are they on the side or in the rear of the building where the playground is?
It's on the side. On the where is the playground and on the side.
So in the rear and on the side?
Yes, nothing. It's on Needham Street.
Okay. All right. It's a total of what, 25 or 26 parking stalls, right?
Yeah, we have 26 parking spots
26.
And 8 the additional. So it's we looking just for 6. It's a 6 waivers.
Okay, so what's the total number of parking stalls you're going to have for the daycare operation?
It's right now I have 34.
You're going to have 34?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we need just 6. It's waivers.
Okay. So you'll have 34 parking stalls. Are those parking stalls, are there going to be any signs to indicate that these parking stalls are for the daycare operation only, so other commercial properties don't park in your parking stalls?
Yeah, so we have signs like pick up, drop off, don't park from 8 to 9:30, and from it's a 4 to 6. It's a 5 minutes. It's a maximum.
Okay,
We
that's yep. Oh, go on. Sorry.
We have a signs. It will be in the wall. It's across each stalls.
Okay, I would recommend that any signs that should say parking for daycare only.
Yes, yes.
But you're putting time restrictions on there. I don't see. I'm not a big fan of that. I would just have the sign say parking for daycare only.
I need to interject.
Excuse me, Mr. Nealon, though, this is not the right time for you to do that. I will come back to you if we can. Right now, we're taking this into the committee. These are the Land Use Committee city councilors who are speaking right now. Finish, Mr. Lucas.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Our signs have it's a logo of our daycare. So this is just for us, for the children.
Okay, so I was confused with the time thing. Does that mean that another commercial property in the area could park in there outside of those time restrictions?
Actually, it's we really it's don't care if it's a people for their convenience to park here. We don't need this time. We need just actually like 3 hours a day. In the morning, 1.5 hours, and it's late afternoon, drop off and pick up.
So your parking is really only going to be for the morning operation and the closing
night
operation. You don't expect any deliveries, any other
no.
children and their parents coming in late in the middle of the afternoon?
So nobody come late. Nobody come late.
I think people do show up late to everything.
Actually, everything possible, but still, we'll have a space because it's for our neighbors. If they can park there, so why not? If we don't use it.
Okay, so if I owned a property next door and some of my customers wanted to park in your parking stalls in the middle of the afternoon, you would be okay with that?
I think so.
Okay.
I would not.
Or
okay.
Staff.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. where are the employees going to park? Are they going to park on the side or in the rear, furthest away from the entrance?
On the back of the building.
Ms. Kemet, could you pull up the site plan again so that we can be visually looking at the areas we're talking about and asking questions of while Mr. Schreiber describes this?
Yes, and I actually had a point of clarification. There aren't actually 34 stalls. There are 25 stalls. It carries forward a 34 stall credit, but there aren't actually 34 stalls dedicated to this building.
25 of the 40 that are required, there are 25 that will be provided according to this plan?
Yes.
I think that 34 credits was a confusing concept to some of us, perhaps. We were thinking that there were 34 stalls required, which led to a waiver of 6 needed. But actually, a waiver of 15 actual spots is needed. If 40 is required, then 25 are provided?
No, because a credit of 34 has been carried
You
forward.
apply the credit, okay. Was that why you had your hand raised, or is there something else?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that there are not 34 stalls.
Okay.
Okay, can you put up the site plan, please? Oh, there you go. And which way is Needham Street, for point of clarification? Oh, it's at the bottom of the
Needham
screen.
runs along the bottom.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Schreiber, I think I pronounced the name right. Sorry if I didn't.
Yes.
Where are the employees going to park?
It's our employees will park. It's in the back, but it's a 7. First of all, we have 18 employees, but just 8 of them have their own cars. And another, it's teachers, they use public transportation and share a ride. So we have just 8 cars altogether.
So you only need 8 of the 26 parking stalls for your operation,
yes.
right?
So basically, yes.
And they're going to park in the back of the building. So numbers 3 to 11 or 4 to 11?
Something like that, yeah.
Are those going to be marked for employees only?
It will be on the back of the building. Will be no parking. It's park employees. It's Creative Kids Studio only.
Okay, are they going to be marked for employees only?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. And cars who are parked on the side, they're going to come in off of Needham Street, and how do they exit? Do they exit the same way that they came in?
No.
Oh, I see it. Oh, I see it.
Going around, it's two-way.
Okay. All right. And that's going to be communicated to the parents, and there's ample signs back there telling them how to exit the site?
We put special telephone system, and it will be exactly, from parents automatically goes to the class.
Okay. And are there signs back there that tell motorists how to exit the site?
Yeah. Yes.
There are arrows.
I was going to say, or are they painted arrows on
it's arrows
the surface?
on the floor.
It's fine.
It's,
Okay.
On the ground.
All right. I was just wanted to see what the car circulation, what the parking operation was going to be. That's fine with me. Thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. There are 2 more hands raised by councilors on the committee who have spoken before, but before we get to that and maybe close this out, I wondered if Mr. Temple wanted to give us any clarity or definition. It seems to me that we are sticking to what we need to here, which are matters that relate to whether a parking waiver for 6 stalls is appropriate. Mr. Temple, do you have anything you would like to add to help guide us?
I think you are good, Chair. The committee is should be focused on the parking waiver only, as that's the only request before the city council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Temple. We're going to hear now again from the two committee members, and then Mr. Nealon. Before we close it out, I'll come back to you. Councillor Farrell, I think you had your hand up, but do we want to hear from Councillor Leary? Councillor Leary.
Thank you very much. Regarding the waiver of the parking stalls, I've never really quite understood how people know exactly how many parking stalls each use has, or how they figure out how many drivers they're going to be and all that. So the number of how we get to that, to me, is suspect right away. So I'm really not concerned about the waiver of those 6 stalls, especially if there is good circulation, efficient circulation, and staggered times. That I think is very important. It sounds like they have thought about that. I was just curious, though, if the petitioner thinks that any of the kids might be local, coming from some of the apartment buildings across the street. And do you happen to know if everyone will be, all the children will be driven either in a shared ride, or will some of them perhaps be walking with their parents?
A lot of kids living on Avalon apartment, and just walking to the daycare.
You already know that you have children, students coming from, who will be walking from nearby?
Yeah, so we already have them.
How many?
This about like it's about like 9, 10.
9, 10.
Then some parents it's going with a bicycle.
Okay. Okay, so not everyone will be driving.
No, not everybody.
Okay. Thank
not
you very
everyone.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. Councillor Block?
I am confused about the credits. I would like someone to explain how parking credits are acquired and how we know it's 34 and not some other number, and how parking credits apply to this particular situation.
Let's turn
I
this.
can explain that.
We're going to turn that back to Ms. Kemet and Ms. Wewell.
Yeah, there's a formula in the ordinance that sets this forth, and it's pretty well explained in the zoning review memorandum. When a use replaces another use, that the prior use's parking credits can carry forward using this formula in the ordinance. So this was all examined at zoning review. So, yeah, so the previous retail use in the 9,512 square foot space required 1 stall per every 300 square feet, plus 1 per every 3 employees, resulting in a credit of 34 stalls. The daycare requires 1 per every 5 children, plus 1 stall for every employee. Applying the 34 stall credit, a waiver of 6 stalls is required.
Thank you for that explanation. I truly appreciate it. But it makes the waiver of 6 stalls even more significant in my mind. If our standard would call for 40 parking stalls and there are actually 25, without the waiver would be 31. So when I think about how close are we to our standard, we're 25 out of 40. So that's a pretty big shortfall on a percentage basis. So I'm wondering if the planning department thought about that. That's that shortfall of 15 out of 40 versus 9 out of 40, and how that would play out from a vehicle circulation and safety standpoint? Thank you, Chair Kelly.
Thank you, Councillor Block. I'm actually glad that you asked that question because I do think it's confusing, and I think I was doing math in my head like you were. 40 are needed, 25 are provided, we're 15 short. So a waiver of 6 doesn't make that up. So I appreciated hearing about the formula and the previous use. We still have to use our best judgment here on this one, though. Councillor Farrell, I would like to end with you on the committee, but we still have one member from the, Mr. Nealon again has his hand up, and I think we might like to hear from him before you, if that's all right with you, Mr. Nealon.
That's fine, thank you.
Yeah, hi.
Go ahead.
So there's been a history of a daycare center there at the building. It was Golden Days Play Camp back from 1997 or so up until 2011. They kind of ran a kind of chaotic drop-off scenario, but it works because parents, when they drop off their kids, whether they're an infant going into nursery care or 2, 3, 4, maybe up to 5 years old, the parents walk their kids into the building. They don't let them out of their hands. And once they're on the property, in the custody of, not custody, I don't make it sound like they're arrested, but once they're in the building, they're safe. That's just the way daycare happens. My kid's much older now, but that's the way it was for me. You walk your kids in and out all the time. It's not about child safety at all. Alex Schraber and his wife, they are meticulous about this. They will not put a child in harm ever. So I just think you're making a big deal out of 6 parking spaces. It's silly. And by the way, when the Golden Days Play Camp went in there in 1997 or 98, they only needed 4 parking spaces because that was the requirement at the time. Alex does not need 25 parking spaces. He doesn't need 34 or 40 or whatever, but that's the silly ordinance that's in place right now. It's silly. It's parents drop off and they leave. They go to work. They're working professionals, you know, husband and wife, doctor, lawyer, whatever. They go to work. They drop off their kids, then they come back. The drop off is probably much more between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning. And then it's much more staggered late in the afternoon. Very staggered, which has no conflicts. Our busiest tenant, if you want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you can go down there to Burn Boot Camp. They're busiest at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Those are their 2 busiest classes. And that's why Alex had signs made up. And Alex, I don't want to correct you, but your signs say 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning. You don't want them parking in your parking spaces. But Alex has the right to every single one of his parking spaces if he wants it. Every single one of them. Period. I don't get what this is about, to be honest. I really don't.
Thank you.
Because they only need 10 parking spaces.
Thank you, Mr. Nealon. The way the planning department creates a formula around different uses and how much parking for both the users and the staff is something that we do pay attention to. I understand you're saying you think they really only need 10 spots during the day, but we're actually putting some value on the input from our planning staff here. But thank you for piping up and for supporting this daycare use, which will of course be a great thing for you as the owner and landlord to have a happy, useful use in that building. Are you all set for now?
I just want this to get approved today, and that's it, because it's important.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. While I make some comments, would you ask, please, that the plan be put up, if that's possible? All I can say to Mr. Newland is that, yes, this is important. And what it's all about is the safety of the children who are going into this program. I have no doubt that the Schraders, if I'm pronouncing that properly, will do everything in their power to make certain that the children are safe once they're in the building. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about having the space for the students and parents to bring their kids in. And I would dare say most of them are going to come by car. If you know this area of Needham Street, you don't walk this area of Needham Street, particularly with a child of this age. It's extremely dangerous, and it's extremely crowded in traffic. And my concern is that when they turn off of Needham Street and come into this site, they will be going along the left side of the building as we look at it. Is there a question is, I don't know whether there's a drop-off space along that side or if it's only on the back side. But I believe, and have some experience with this, that there's going to be very little carpooling here. These are going to be one parent, one child for the most part, except for those who may in fact walk, which I think is insane, particularly if you're trying to cross Highland Street. But I look at 20 or 30 cars coming in and a parent dropping off their child and the cars behind them waiting until that child is out and inside the building. And then the parent moves off. And then the next parent does the same thing. If it's just 30 cars at that point, that's an hour, I would imagine. Close to an hour just to get those 30 cars in there and out. And I would like to say that I would like to see a flow chart, a plan for how it is not intuitive how you get in and out of this property. And I think there ought to be a clear plan that shows people how to go, not just a couple of signs, but maybe signs on posts saying, you turn here, do U-turn, go back till you see the next sign, whatever it is. But it is not intuitive about getting in and out of this property at all. This is not a silly issue. It is about safety. It's about these kids. I'm really glad there's going to be a daycare center there. We need that, particularly one that is well supervised, and the kids will benefit, the parents will benefit. But in the meantime, getting in and out of this property is going to take a long time because there are so many cars doing it. And I don't see a plan that says, and maybe you could have a drop-off space on some of the parking spots along the side of the building. Maybe you have a drop-off space along the back, but I don't know what the people who are supposed to park there are going to do during that. But there's going to be, I can't see any other way that this is going to be backup and causing a real traffic problem and a hazardous problem on Needham Street and even within the property here. I would like to see some more information about the traffic flow and how this is going to work. And I do agree that they need every parking space available in order to make a plan work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. I wonder, I would be interested in hearing a response to that from planning in that, do you think more information, a flow chart of circulation is something that can be worked out with you, or do you think it's important to hold this in order to come up with that information, which I think is the direction I hear Councillor Farrell going in? Planning?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been clear that we aren't concerned with the 6-stall parking waiver. However, I'm hearing the council has concerns. You know, I think what I'm also hearing is, you know, that there will be a daycare here, but there won't be if the stalls aren't waived. So if the committee wants to hold this, we can go back and work with the applicant, and perhaps when their attorney is back, we can do some further work with the directive of the committee on what they are looking for.
My question to you really was more like, do you think this is something that can be worked out, conditionally approved with review and input from planning between now and when it comes back to the full council, rather than holding it?
I want to see the next council date, just to see if we have the time. So I'm
Well,
trying to
that's
pull it
another
up.
important consideration for us to be aware of. Is there a time clock on this that we need to be thinking of? The clerk is looking that up too as we ponder. May 6th, that's soon. That's when it's going to run out? Oh, that's our next meeting, you mean? May 6th.
Yeah, so is the council looking for a circulation plan to be referenced in the order and for planning to administratively review?
We're still having a discussion. There has been no motion made. I was trying to explore that with you, so we might have some direction and a way to go.
Chair, if I can jump in.
Yes, I
we
was just
could
going to ask you,
certainly
Mr.
Add a
Templeton.
condition that says prior to an issuance of a certificate of occupancy that a circulation plan is submitted and approved by the planning department.
Councillor Farrell, how does that sit with you?
I appreciate that. I would like also for some sort of time motion study, if it's possible to do that, for 50, 75, 100 cars going onto the property and what that would do with the traffic, and particularly just concerned about kids getting out of cars, running into cars, coming out of the building in the afternoon, trying to get into. I would hope that it would be possible fairly quickly to do a time motion study on traffic, and I would like to see a traffic pattern for coming in and getting off the property. Thank you.
We already have it.
Pardon me?
We already have it.
I already have what?
Is that
The
Mr.
traffic
Schraber?
pattern.
I'm sorry.
The traffic pattern's been approved under a special permit in 2000.
Sorry, Mr. Nealon, you were just speaking out of turn, so the clerk has muted you at this time. I believe you were saying
We
that.
have the traffic pattern.
Yeah, can I do that right now? Chair,
Yes, Mr. Councillor Farrell.
is it appropriate to move to hold this until the next meeting, please, and hopefully have conversations with the group about these issues?
Anything like that is appropriate. Let's hear from a few other hands up.
That's fine, thank you.
Councillor Leary, then Councillor Block.
Well, I just want to second the motion, that's all.
Okay, you can do that at any time too, Councillor Leary, but thank you, Councillor Block.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to put this in perspective, that this is a small business with a relatively small ask. And I think it's being treated as much more of a concern than I believe it really is. And I'm wondering how much it's based on planning skills and facts and training, rather than just thinking that this is your experience. So, which is not, that's still valuable. But I'm just a little concerned that if we're giving a daycare with 6 parking waivers this hard a time, it's going to be, I was wondering why so few people are coming into land use. I mean, we have to be reasonable. We have to go by some of the guidelines that we have with our trained staff and our legal team. And I'm really concerned about how I think we're treating this very unfairly and putting it under a microscope. Now, that's obviously my opinion, but I have been on the city council for 11 years now, and I am concerned. There has to be a balance, and we have to be very thoughtful about when we delay things. It costs money. It costs money, it costs time, and these are, these are small businesses. So that's my concern. I would not be in favor of holding it. If there's a requirement for additional information that can come to us before the next city council meeting, I think that would be the fair way to go.
May I say something?
Yes, sir, Mr. Schreiber.
We have 2 daycares and 49 Winchester Street, when we have there like 75 children. And across the street, 56 Winchester Street, when we have like it's 39 children. And we never ever had any problems with the parking. It's in the 56 Winchester Street. We have just 11 parking spots. It's for 39 children, and on 49 Winchester Street we have 32 parking spots for 70 children, 75 children, and we never have any problems. Any issues with. And we operate for 7 years. So we're planning to close to both one and to go to one place in 66 Needham Street.
Mr. Schreiber, can I clarify with you, is Mr. Bob Nealon part of your petitioner team? I don't want to silence him if he's part of your presentation. We'd like to hear from everyone, but I have to also manage this and not let certain people take over and dominate. So is he part of your team, or is he a separate person speaking?
No, he's a separate. I mean,
Okay.
he's my landlord.
Correct. I thought so.
He just
All right.
supports us.
Thank you very much. We have another hand or two up in the committee, but I also see that Mr. Iadenisi from Planning has a hand up, and he may have some helpful information. Oh, Jonah Temple. Yes, we would definitely like to hear from our law department.
Thank you, Chair. And maybe I should have said this at the beginning, but I didn't realize this was going to be so controversial. But the committee should keep in mind that this is not its standard discretionary review for a special permit. This use is protected. This is a Dover protected use. So the use is allowed here by law. And this waiver has to be granted if it's going to substantially or diminish or detract from this protected use or nullify it or impede it. So I would really caution the committee to be careful here with their consideration, and to keep in mind again that this is about a waiver of parking stalls. So any other adverse impacts, traffic, things like that are really beyond the scope of what should be a very limited review by the committee.
That's what I was trying to get at earlier, and thank you for reminding us of that. We do have 2 more counselors who'd like to speak. Counselor Lucas?
Thank you, Chair. I heard Mr. Temple earlier say that we could put a condition in the special permit that an occupancy permit shall not be issued until the petitioner submits a circulation plan of the parking. Did I hear that correct earlier, Mr. Temple?
That's correct. And we can also add a signage plan to that condition.
Okay, I'm going to recommend that we add both of those to the council order. And yeah.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. That's exactly where I was going to go to wrap up before going to Counselor Farrell, and I hope that we will wrap up with this. Go ahead, Counselor Farrell.
Question, please, clarification. What is the second part of your comment? What's your second condition or whatever it is?
Have a signage plan. Have that that plan be submitted and referenced in the council order. Signs for parking, street, driveway markings, how to exit, things like that.
That will be run by the planning department before an occupancy permit is granted. That's how that would all go, and that's the direction I would be inclined to go in also. How does that sound to you? I think that Attorney Temple was cautioning us not to, and I heard it from Councilor Leary's comments too, not to be impeding this protected use by delaying, slowing down, or voting against it. That is something that the Dover Amendment does not like to see. Go ahead.
May I speak? Let me repeat.
Yes, absolutely. You still have the floor.
Let me repeat. I am completely in favor of this daycare center. I understand the issues about small businesses. And I understand, I think, a little bit more about the Dover Amendment or whatever that's called. But I don't think even the Dover Amendment precludes concerns about safety. And that's all I'm saying. I'm concerned about kids getting in and out safely, and that people have reasonable time to drop their children off safely, pick them up safely, and get out of that lot. Thank you very much.
Councilor Farrell, this is your ward. You may make a motion if you choose to close the public hearing. You may make a motion to hold. We can vote on that. And if that doesn't pass, we can look at conditions and have conditions added to a council order, and then we can vote on that. What is your preference?
A clarification, please. Is the motion on the floor which has been seconded, do we have to do something with that?
I'm sorry.
There was a motion to hold, and it was seconded.
True.
I'm not.
All right, we will then.
I'm not a parliamentarian.
That's what I'm saying. You can make that motion. We'll see where that goes, and we can take it further. Would you like to close the public hearing before we vote on
I move
it?
to close the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. No one is opposed. The public hearing is closed. We now have a motion to hold this item, and we'll do that by roll call.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
No.
Counselor Leary,
No.
Counselor Lucas.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Is there another motion you would like to make to move forward
I
with this?
understand a motion to, have we closed the public hearing now?
We already moved to close the public hearing.
Yes.
And your motion to hold didn't pass, so now I would entertain a motion to move forward in some way that would make a condition that would be to, for instance, include a circulation and signage plan as one of the conditions that would be reviewed by the planning department and approved before an occupancy permit is granted.
You said that beautifully, Chair, and I would move to do what you just said. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Farrell. Let's go back to planning now and see what the findings in the council order would look like, including the criteria that we just put in there, the requirement we just added.
Sure. So for findings, we have one, the site in a mixed-use 2 district is an appropriate location for the proposed waivers because the site is in an area with transit options available as an alternative to driving. 2, the waivers will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the nature of the use means that much of the parking is only available temporarily for pickup and drop off, and there's adequate long-term parking for staff. 3, there will not be a nuisance to vehicles or pedestrians because the existing curb cuts and access points will be maintained. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And a waiver of 6 stalls is in the public interest because constructing additional parking stalls would require an increase in impervious paving on the site, and on-site parking is available. For conditions, we have plan referencing, standard building permit conditions, and occupancy. And adding in that an amendment would be required for an increase in students or children and staff, and adding in that the petitioner will provide a signage plan and circulation plan for the site prior to occupancy.
Thank you. Councilor Lucas.
Quick question. First of all, thank you, Chair. Number 4, does that mean if the petitioner wants to increase students or staff, they have to come back and seek another special permit?
They would require an amendment to their special permit.
Okay. All right. So right now they're capped at 110 students and 18 staff?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Are we all set to move forward? Great. Let's take a vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Farrow,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. Good night. We are adjourned.
Good night.
There's no